gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. The Commissioner of Police, Mr. Stephen Coventry, is going to provide us an update on the most recent shooting incident which took place at around 11 o'clock last night.
Good morning, everybody. As Mr. Moreno touched on last night, the Bermuda Police Service responded to a report of a shooting. Police attended and we subsequently established that a young man had been shot in the shoulder. Thankfully, his injury is not life-threatening. Given the resources that we have placed to address such issues, in the immediate area there was an armed response vehicle who attended the location and made an arrest of the person that we believe is involved in this matter. Obviously the investigation continues today and we'll go forward with interviews of the person that is currently here at Hampton Police Station and there will be very vigorous forensic inquiries to establish if this individual was indeed the person responsible for this matter last night. I speak extremely concerned to this. Obviously, as I've spoken in the past, the use of firearms in our streets brings great risk to our community. Indeed, we had the incident a couple of weeks ago at Spinning Wheel, to which the investigation also continues, and we are confident of bringing charges against those responsible. But we face, in Bermuda and indeed all over the world, a crisis that hasn't been seen in our lifetimes, a crisis that threatens the health of all of us, particularly those that are vulnerable. And every single service in Bermuda is working hard and together to address this risk. It's working hard to advise people, and indeed our community has responded by social distancing, isolation, and thankfully the numbers of reported cases in Bermuda in comparison to other parts of the world is extremely low. And we want that to continue. We want to protect everybody. And the Bermuda Police Service is very active alongside the Royal Bermuda Regiment and others within the EMO to address this challenge. And it does not help when we are called to deal with such matters. And I reflect on the individuals involved, and I say individuals because there are thankfully a small number of people in our community who resort to such violence, and their acts not only are criminal but they are selfish to the whole fabric of Bermuda. They take away our resources to address matters when we actually should be focusing on the health of our island. And I know we're speaking as a commissioner, I have very little influence to their behaviour, if at all. But there are people in the community that do have influence, who are indeed gang members themselves, who should take responsibility to what they're doing, how they're living their lives, and the choices that they're making. And I ask sincerely that there is a stop to this kind of behaviour. There is a stop to the kind of fallouts and the resortment to the use of such serious violence, particularly with firearms or any other form of violence. And we need calm so we can get on with what we've got to do. And what we've got to do is look after people, and we need to work together, protect the health of Bermuda. And I echo the words of the Premier, this is about us all working together. Quite happy to take some questions.
Have you determined at this stage whether the last night shooting has any connection to the fatal shooting last week?
No, it's very hard to answer those questions because there will be a connectivity to all shootings because it does involve, as I say, a very small number of our community who have got connections through whether it be drug dealing or other ways. So it's a line of inquiry that will progress, particularly to understand whether or not it presents any risk of further retaliation, which is the reason for my message today. And whilst there might just be words, I really am asking people that listen to this who know these guys, have got contact with them, or even actually it's themselves, have a think of actually us as human beings, and maybe don't make the choices that put such severe pressure on other services, as well as obviously present risk to life to others.
There were rumours and reports online that the man injured in last week's shooting had also been stabbed. Can you comment on this?
It's not appropriate for me to comment at this stage. There are a number of inquiries going on, not least liaison with individuals' families, and that's the most important thing. And what I don't want is people to guess something that perhaps we haven't already established.
Okay. A lack of access to international drugs, such as now when there's no travellers coming to Bermuda, no cruise ships coming in, it's sometimes anecdotally linked to gang tensions. Can you comment on this?
Well, I mean, a lot of our plans in regards to how, and the BPS is just one agency, this is a very much joined up approach, because we understand that particularly as the current situation is ongoing, people will feel tense and they will feel concerned, and that's why messages of reassurance and clear advice by government and transparency is absolutely key. But also what we are doing is we're liaising very closely with our communities. We're reaching out, making sure we understand what's going on, and also focusing on perhaps those persons who present the greatest danger to us. And that has to continue, and we need to make sure that we're ready and able to prevent such situations. And whilst, again, the Commissioner rolls out when we get such instances, this is part of that process. It's getting that message across that we all need to work together, and this situation does not help that agenda.
So, morning, sir. Would you be able to tell us anything further about the circumstances of the shooting? Was this individual on foot? Were they riding on a motorcycle? Really anything that
I mean, we know that what we believe is that there was one person involved who was the shooter, and the person that we have injured was shot in the shoulder. We know that there was another member of the public alongside the victim at the time, and obviously they are an important witness as well. The matters that lead up to the event and after the event, we're still trying to clarify, but what I can tell you is that the police resources were in the vicinity, they were immediately on scene within a matter of seconds, and the detainment of the person we have in custody was on the basis of what was suspected at the time to have taken place.
within a matter of seconds, you said? So they really were right there.
Very short period of time, yes.
And you made reference to gangs when you were speaking just now. Presumably there is a gang connection to this that is part of your investigation.
Yeah, I know, Jonathan, I've been asked that question quite a lot. And it goes back to the other point around, is this connected? Yes, there is gang connections. Yes, these people are involved in a variety of different activities. And the point I'm trying to get across is the realisation by people in our community at all levels, either those that can influence or take personal responsibility, is recognise what actually is going on in Bermuda across the world, because we really do need to focus on significant agendas and work together as a community.
May I ask one more? You're making something of an impassioned plea to people to take notice of what's happening around them, but you did say last week after the fatal shooting, you're dealing with people that have no regard for law and order. Is it going on deaf ears to make these pleas?
Well, I think, whilst I do think some have no regard for law and order until they're detained and they face lengthy prison sentences and their lives change as severely as those that they affect. But I can't ever take a position where I give up. I can't ever take a position that we can't reach out to these people, whether it myself or our officers or others in the government's own gang team. And we need to be committed all the time to engage with people, because there is always the possibility of people changing direction in their life, taking responsibility. And whilst I am extremely angry by what's taken place in regards to the family that have been affected, the way in which the community will feel, we need to just keep getting that message across that we can change this situation. And as soon as we think we can't, then of course it becomes futile and we're not committed to some of the things that we as a police service do deliver, which is about keeping people safe. So the message is clear, and it's not one that's based on any form of giving up.
Anything else?
Awesome.